Good evening and shalom from Jerusalem, Jane. I would just walked in the door and it's a very, very painful day here in Israel. It's one of those days where it literally is physically hurting you to breathe. I wasn't planning on making this video. I was thinking about waiting tomorrow. I was out all the way in the other end of Jerusalem having an ultrasound, and I just came back and I sat down with a cup of coffee and I was like, no, I just need to speak from my heart in a straight up non-professional but personal way. This morning, yet another horrific terror attack took place here in Israel. 3 people, a man in his 40s, was brutally murdered when terrorists out in Samaria near the Israeli community of Cohen fired into his vehicle, and they literally plainly executed him. They fired into another vehicle, and 2 sister-in-laws was out driving, and they were also just killed on the spot. The terrorists then fired upon a bus that arrived, and the bus driver was severely injured. In that bus, a total of 8 people were injured. The man who was killed, I will show you his photo a little later, was identified as Elad Yaakov Winkelstein. He was a police officer and he was working at the police station in Arad. The 2 sister-in-laws who was brutally murdered was named as Rachel Cohen and Aliza Reiss. Rachel Cohen was a school counselor and the mother of 4 daughters and most likely a grandma. And Aliza Reiss was 70 years old. She was also a school counselor with children and a family. And I want to show you their photos. Look at these precious ladies, sisters-in-laws who was out driving today. Got up this morning, having breakfast, probably kissing their husbands goodbye, out the door, going out driving as sisters-in-laws, and 2 Arab terrorists got out of their vehicle with automatic weapon and they plainly executed them in their car. If I'm doing the math right, this means that 1 man lost his sister and his wife when these 2 precious ladies were brutally murdered today near the Jewish community of Cohen in Samaria. I can't find the words to describe the pain and the horror from this. The terrorists unfortunately managed to get back into their vehicle and they escaped, so there is now a manhunt on the way. And don't worry, our security forces are the best in the world and they will not rest until these deplorable terrorists has either been killed, God willingly, or apprehended. Following the attack, the Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu sent his condolences to the families of the victims. And he said, "We will reach the despicable murderers and settle accounts with them and with anyone who assists them. No one will go unpunished." After a security assessment on the situation in Judea and Samaria tonight, together with people from the army and the security agencies, Netanyahu approved of additional offensive and defensive measures in that area. This is Elad Yaakov, the police officer who was the father of 2 children, who was brutally murdered in this horrific terror attack. So that's how this day started in the Holy Land today, with 3 people brutally murdered, driving in their private vehicles on a road out in Samaria that's being used by Jews and Arabs. An Arab terrorist set out in their deplorable demonic hate towards the Jewish people, set out simply to murder Jews for no other reason than they are Jews and they are living in their God-given homeland. And now this one family has to bury 2 sisters-in-laws, 2 precious grandmas, most likely, mothers to several children, one of them 5 girls, in their 70s, school counselors, who was brutally murdered just for being Jews in Israel. I am sending my deepest condolences to their families, to their husbands, to their children, grandchildren, siblings, niece, nephews. I can't find the words to describe this. I wonder if you are even going to hear about this in your mainstream media. I am glad that the Prime Minister decided to have this security briefing tonight, and I have been speaking about this. For those of you who have been following me for years, you know that I have been speaking about how Judea and Samaria, especially Samaria and the northern part of Samaria, is a wild west. It's a wild west for terrorists. And apparently these terrorists was from Palestinian Islamic Jihad, who is roaming free out in Judea and Samaria because, oh, boo-hoo, no, we can't put up roadblocks because we're going to discriminate against the Arabs. So they are roaming free in Samaria. Thousands of terrorists armed to the teeth with no roadblocks. And that's why time and time again we are seeing these horrendous terror attacks, especially in Samaria, because these terrorists can pass around in the street without checkpoints, with all roadblocks, with all of the weapons that they have that has been smuggling in to Judea and Samaria, especially around the terrorist nest of Jenin. So now there's going to be funerals again for this young police officer in his 40s, 2 children, 2 sisters-in-laws, who's now going to bury it and say goodbye to their beloved. While again Arabs are celebrating and handing out candies in the street because 3 precious Jewish souls were brutally murdered today, plainly executed, driving in their vehicles. So I'm sending my heartfelt and deepest condolences to the families of these victims. May their memory forever be a blessing. And may these terrorists be hunted down and killed like the savages they are. Less than an hour after we had this horrific terror attack today, 3 rockets were fired from inside Gaza into Israel from terrorists in Gaza. They managed to fire 3 rockets towards the city of Sderot. I shared video of this on my social media. And there was actually some parts of one of these rockets that hit a house in Sderot. And again, we can only say by a miracle and because of your prayers, wherever you are around the world, praying for the people here in Israel, nobody got killed in yet another terror rocket attack on Israel. So how was your day? What happened in your country? Because again, 3 precious Jews were brutally murdered in Israel this morning, and 3 rockets were flying in from terrorists in Gaza. Hamas terrorists, Palestinian Islamic Jihad terrorists, Fatah terrorists, they are roaming free all over Judea and Samaria. So I am saying, you know, to the Israeli government, to the Israeli military, it's time to take off the gloves and do something, and to protect your people, They are sitting ducks, the ones who was living in Judea and Samaria, the Jewish people living in Judea and Samaria, from all of these terrorists who was running around with automatic weapons and who is driving free in the streets. It is time to do something, to take off the gloves and protect the brave pioneers who chose to live in the biblical heartland of Judea and Samaria, the land that God gave them, the biblical heartland, the liberated Judea and Samaria, and not the unbelievable lies of the occupied West Bank. This is the liberated Judea and Samaria, where the Jewish people have been settling for thousands and years, and they are not safe because this has been turned into the Wild West of terrorists. So it is definitely time to put up more roadblocks and protect the brave Jewish people who is living out in Judea and Samaria. By the way, did you know that the security forces in Israel prevented almost 1,100 major terror attacks in Jerusalem and Judea and Samaria last year in 2024? Something that I will also speak more about in upcoming videos. So there are terrorists in Gaza, but they are also heavily present out in Judea and Samaria, and especially in the northern part of Samaria, surrounding the city of Jenin, the cesspool of Jenin, where they're running around like an army, armed to the teeth with weapons, prepared to just go out and murder the Jewish people, like what we saw happen today. So it was important for me to just get this update out. Like I said, I just sat down, I came home, took on my reading glasses. So for such a time as this, would you just share out this video? Because I don't even think you might not even hear about this in your mainstream media, that yet another heinous terror attack in Israel. 3 funerals is now going to take place for people being brutally murdered for no other reason than just being Jewish here in their God-given homeland. So for such a time as this, we stand with Israel. I'm sending my deepest condolences to these people. May their memories forever be a blessing. And united, we are standing with Israel. Bye.